She fought in the partisan units called the Maquis, some on the fronts of the Great Patriotic War alongside our soldiers. There were also other people in Europe. In France itself, there was a marshal named Pétain, I believe, who essentially agreed that his homeland was defeated and practically collaborated with Nazi Germany, forming units that later fought at Stalingrad and so on in other places. Let's not delve into the details now, because this is a complex, complicated chapter in France's history. And some believed that he did the right thing to preserve the French as an ethnic group, as a nation. Some called him a traitor. Well, after the war, he ended up being regarded as a traitor. But let's not get into the details now. What's important is that there have always been people who shared and still share our principles, values, and people who stand with us. And today, some citizens of the French Republic are fighting alongside our soldiers in the special military operation zone, shoulder to shoulder, and have named their unit the same as their grandfathers and great-grandfathers did, Normandy, Niemann.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, you mentioned ways of conveying information. We understand how important it is for young people to share facts about our country's history with each other. I would like to give the floor to Victoria Agapova, the winner of the Guardians of History project and a blogger.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, good afternoon. My name is Victoria Agapova, from the city of Tambov. I am a two-time winner of the all-Russian competition Big Change in the Remember Challenge, and the author of a historical blog dedicated to the events and heroes of the Great Patriotic War. My great-grandfather, Alexander Ivanovich Boldyrev, was a hero of the Soviet Union. He defended our country from the Germans in Ukraine and Belarus. He was not only a brave but also a resourceful soldier. Once, Alexander Ivanovich saved a damaged self-propelled gun of his comrades. By using a very unconventional method, he made a dummy out of his coveralls, which the Germans fired upon. At that moment, Alexander Ivanovich rushed to the damaged vehicle and drove it back to his own side. In doing so, he saved his friends. And there were quite a number of such feats in my great-grandfather's journey. It was these feats that inspired me to create a patriotic community, where I tell the younger generation about war heroes and their achievements. I understand that it's important to tell the younger generation about the war and historical facts in a language that is clear and interesting to them. But for me, this is currently the biggest challenge. In your opinion, how should we tell the young generation of our country about the war, historical facts, and the history of our ancestors to spark their interest in studying history?
Vaika, how did you learn this story about your great-grandfather?
Family. Well, yes. My mom told me because my great-grandfather lived until the time when my mom was born. And she would tell how he would come to the village.
Yes, her grandfather. Yes. See how it is. Well, we've already talked about this. I have already mentioned that it's very important when this information is passed down from one generation to another within the family. See, you just said, my mom told me, you love your mom, she loves you, there's no doubt about it, it's immediately apparent, and you trust her. My mom told me a little, very little, also about some episodes from the war times. Well, it's well known, they barely survived, I've already mentioned this, during the blockade, and at the time when my father was fighting at the front. Oh, and they lost a small child there. And when people whom you absolutely trust completely speak it naturally, reaches your heart, as I said, and it creates a desire to do something yourself, to solidify this knowledge, to secure this important information and pass it on. Therefore, the most reliable way is what happens in our families, when from parents to children, from children further to their children, and so on, through generations, exactly right. This is the most important thing, the truthfulness, the reliability of the information. And of course, the method of conveying this information is also important. My relatives gave me a letter, from my grandfather, which he wrote, and I have already spoken about this publicly during the war to his son, who was in the active army. So, well, first of all, he wrote with mistakes. He was a village man, a peasant. There were 10 mistakes in every sentence. But what struck me, you see, is that he addressed his son formally. Dear there, Ivan Ivanich, dear Ivan Ivanovich. And then he talks about how his wife died, that is, the mother of his son. There was a shootout and she was hit in the stomach by a bullet. And she died in his arms, in the grandfather's arms. And when she was dying, she said, I also talked about this. I'll repeat it again because it's very important. This is a characteristic trait of many of our people, regardless of nationality, just among Russian people, including Russians. She understands that she is dying, and she tells him, as he writes in the letter, don't cry, don't upset me. Dying, she thinks about him. Can you imagine? It's simply incredible. Well, incredible. There you go. And in the end, the conclusion, beat those bastards. Well, you understand what kind of motivation that was. So he is addressing his son and so on. There are many everyday issues related to household matters and so on, which are not essential in this case. But overall, when you take such things in the family, like I did, I read it. I mean, you understand, I'm an adult. I studied in school, in university. I worked in special services, in intelligence for almost 20 years. Seemingly an informed person. I thought I knew everything. But when I took the letter and started reading, I began to look at the events of that time differently. I kind of realized the fabric of the events that happened then, understood how people lived, what they lived for, how they felt, what they talked about. And this enduring truth, it is the most important. That's what needs to be conveyed. Well, of course, it's very important. If we're talking about such ways of disseminating information in a broad sense, it's very important that this work is talented. So, for example, like the film, a clip of which we just saw, works of musical art, visual art. Well, how do I do it? How do we do it? Just like in your family, everything happens the same way with me, like with everyone else.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, we feel a special connection to the past, thanks to our ancestors, their memories, and what remains from them. But a special connection to the military past is felt by those who stand and have stood guard over the motherland. Deputy Company Commander of the Guards, Senior Lieutenant, Sergei Lobanov. Not only a defender of the motherland, but also a member of the Union of Writers of Russia and a poet.
Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, greetings. It is a great honor and joy for me to be present at this meeting. We have just watched a clip from a film based on a story by Boris Vasilyev. I am sure that none of us remained indifferent. And why is that? Because there is truth in this work. Real trench soldiers' truth that cannot be invented. It must be experienced by directly participating in battles. You know, the poet and frontline soldier of that time, Sergei Orlov, wrote about this very accurately. Such lines: I carried lines smelling of gunpowder, out from under fire, in my hands. It is very pleasing that this truth is also present in the works of contemporary writers such as Hero of Russia, Maxim Baharev, Oleg Roy, Alexei Presnokov, Alexei Shorokov, and many, many others. This is just a part of the names of that large layer of talented, creative people who are born in this difficult, challenging time for Russia. Comrade Supreme Commander-in-Chief, we are ready to fulfill any tasks set by you, not only on the front, where the desired is achieved through weapons, but also on the cultural front. Based on this, I ask you to consider the possibility of creating a development program for participants and veterans of the special military operation in the field of culture and art. Thank you.
Thank you very much for, please have a seat, Yim. Thank you for what you are doing and have done both within the framework of the special military operation and now for your creativity. And how many such cases were there during the Great Patriotic War? Yes. The Soviet leadership, by the way, tried to protect our artists. They sent them, and thank you, they sent them into evacuation and so on. Well, this is well known to everyone. Many nevertheless volunteered to go to the front and perished. Very young people. Some of them wrote only 1 or 2 works in their entire lives. And then you read them, get acquainted with them. Some of their songs became like folk songs. Here, the words are folk. In fact, they have authors, and unfortunately, they passed away, perished on the fronts. Because cultural figures are also part of our people, who live with the people, fight with the people, achieve victories with the people, and contribute to achieving these victories. Because creativity inspires people. So many wonderful songs were born during the Great Patriotic War, songs that we still sing today. And we do so with pleasure. And films, and works of painting, and music, and so on. You know, well, all of this was created because creative people encountered absolutely unique situations in life, and this prompted them to express themselves, to write, or to compose music. I think everyone knows crossing, left bank, right bank, rough snow, edge of ice, and then the words there, to whom glory and to whom dark water, and immediately, boom, images are born in the mind. So important. And therefore, of course, we will do everything to support such, I'll say, such guys like you, talented, young, driven, to help the country, help those people who are next to us, and who, not only with the help of weapons, but also with the help of their talent, bring victory closer. Thank you. We will definitely think about it. All right?
Thank you, Comrade Supreme Commander.
Thank you very much.
And now I want to give the floor to another young talent, my colleague, a lecturer, with whom we once performed side by side at the Knowledge Contest, lecturer Mikhail Domanin.
Hello, esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich. My name is Mikhail Domanin. I am 17 years old and I am from Chelyabinsk. I am also a lecturer. As Daria mentioned earlier, I became interested in history in the 2nd grade when I accidentally came across a series of films about the Great Patriotic War called The Great War on the internet. I enjoyed telling my peers about it, even older kids. An even greater discovery for me happened when I learned about the knowledge competition lecturer. I passed the competition, created my first lecture, and now I have a mentor among the knowledge lecturers, Stanislav Amanov. He is also a historian. And we communicate with each other as colleagues. I am also proud to be a lecturer, proud that I firmly follow the teachings of Sergei Ivanovich. But In my opinion, most of the lecturer's work always remains behind the scenes. After all, behind every lecture, there are essentially hours of genuine preparation and sincere passion for the work of an educator. And here's what I thought. A lecturer can be compared to a donor. But if a donor saves lives physically, then a lecturer does it on a mental level. He saves our mind, as you noted, brings knowledge into our heart, makes it part of our soul. In my opinion, it is important to acknowledge those people who achieve great success in this field. But at the national level, there are still no awards that reflect such work. Tell me, how possible is it for a title or award to appear for the bearers of true knowledge, for example, an honored educator? Thank you.
Good idea. I have nothing to add. We have many titles like honored worker of such and such field. But this is a very important field of activity, and as I already mentioned, 30,000 people are currently working just in the knowledge society system. Yes, in fact, much more. You mentioned your mentor. Could you say again who that is?
Stanislav Romanov. He is a historian.
How old is he?
Well, approximately as Alexander Sergeyevich Pushkin said, not yet. At grace, let alone in love's retirement.
Well, yes, but he is already an adult, a historian. Did you notice what you said, no? When you were talking about yourself, you said he is also a historian. I was very pleased by that because you consider yourself... And how old are you?
17.
17. You see, you are quite a young person, but you consider yourself a historian. I don't want to evaluate your knowledge or your achievements in this very important science right now. But the fact that you consider yourself a historian is already great. It's already a victory for your mentor. That's great. And I hope that you will continue to at least be interested in this field of activity, this field of science, and contribute to the development of history. History is not a science about the past, it's a science about the future. It's a very important component of our lives. There you go. I want to wish you success. Thank you for the idea. We will try to implement it.
Thank you.
Our compatriots abroad today feel the need to preserve historical truth more than ever. I would like to give the floor to the coordinator of the Immortal Regiment movement in Spain, Victoria Samuilova, one of those who was not afraid to stand up for her country. Victoria.
Hello, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Victoria Samuilova, coordinator of the Immortal Regiment.
Buenos días. Yes, correct?
Correct. In Spain. Oh, sorry, I'm nervous. In recent years, our Immortal Regiment in Spain has indeed become one of the largest in Europe. The international movement of the Immortal Regiment actually began in 2013, and the event quickly started spreading around the world because people feel a sense of unity and a reminder of the shared historical past in which that great victory against Nazism took place. In recent years, our coordinators have faced enormous obstacles. But despite everything, thanks to their bravery and courage, the Immortal Regiments take place all over the world and in various formats. And often, this becomes possible in part thanks to the local residents. For example, in Spain last year, one of the cities refused to hold the event, and the Spaniards quickly organized a motor rally on their own behalf, allowing us to carry the portraits of our heroes, including the Spanish heroes who fought in the ranks of the Red Army, and the Victory Banner, of course. In early April, here at the Victory Museum, we met with coordinators of the Immortal Regiment from 52 countries and planned a large-scale celebration of the event worldwide in more than 100 countries. We will continue to make every effort to preserve historical memory. Dear Vladimir Vladimirovich, our coordinators have a dream to meet with you, to tell you about their activities. It is it is not easy, especially in recent years, and to personally thank you for your support in preserving justice and historical truth. I really hope that such a meeting will take place.
First of all, Victoria, I want to thank you for taking the time and even fighting to promote what you believe is right, what constitutes your convictions, your inner world, namely objective knowledge about World War II in Europe. You live in Spain, right?
Yes.
There you go. Please have a seat. In Spain and in Europe as a whole, there are many people who share our position. A lot, some remain silent, some make very modest statements so as not to be particularly heard. Of course, there are a few people who, under the pressure of official authorities, have the audacity to express their point of view. And not just express it, but show that they have it, their own point of view. This happens for many reasons. The situation that has developed now in European countries, we won't go into details now, that would require a separate meeting. I can talk a lot about this. I just want to say that, as I already mentioned regarding France, I repeat, there was such a figure as Marshal Pétain, but there were others like General de Gaulle, although the Marshal was a hero of the First World War, in relation to the situation that developed after France's defeat. He behaved differently. He practically, turned part of France into satellites of fascist Germany. But there were also those like, not a marshal, but a General de Gaulle, who created the movement to free France, who created all the conditions for the struggle. The same thing happened in Spain. We know very well the period of the 30s when the Spanish people fought against the rise to power of the fascist dictatorship. We know very well how it all began with the famous radio announcement, the sky over all of Spain is cloudless. A Nazi coup began. But many Spanish patriots fought then, and the Soviet Union helped to fight against Nazism in Spain. Now the situation is even more complicated than it was back then. Back then everything was clearer, black and white, or brown, let's say red and brown. And now it may be more difficult, but it is all the more important when people like you understand first the events taking place in Doripe, and secondly have the courage and bravery to clearly state it. And I have no doubt that sooner or later our relations with Europe will be restored. That is certain, including with the support of people like you and people who were born and raised in Spain. And some of them, Spaniards, were born and raised in the Soviet Union. These are the children of those families who moved to the Soviet Union during the Civil War. We have people there to rely on. But it is very important that even in today's very challenging times, there are, I repeat, people like you who have the courage to express their stance on current events, and moreover, to assess what happened during World War II. As for the meeting, we will be happy to do it. We just need to choose the time, format, and convey the best wishes to everyone who, along with you, is engaged in this noble cause of defending the truth about World War II. Thank you very much.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, among us, there are people whose lives have significantly transformed after their native regions rejoined our state. I want to give the floor to Olga Pashintseva, an activist of the first movement from the Donetsk People's Republic.
Good afternoon. My name is Olga Pashintseva. I am 17 years old and I am from the city of Torez in the Donetsk People's Republic. I am a volunteer and a guide at the School Museum of Military Glory. Vladimir Vladimirovich, I want to express my immense gratitude to you. After the reunification with Russia, our lives, the lives of the youth, have significantly transformed. New opportunities have become available, various projects, trips, and meeting peers from all over the country. I have already had the chance to visit Artek, Smina, and become a participant in the flagship projects of the first movement. Also, after the reunification, thanks to the patron regions, cities and schools have been transformed. Moreover, every school has thematic spaces, where students can learn about public organizations, competitions, projects, and thanks to QR codes, they can immediately register for them. However, after talking with students from other regions, unfortunately, I found out that such thematic zones are not present in all schools. And I think it would be great if such spaces appeared in all schools across Russia.
Olya, first of all, please have a seat. First of all, I want to thank you for working in the school museum. That's the first thing. I hope you're not alone there. Surely your peers, classmates, and school friends are with you. This is very important because you are involved in a good cause, and you help your peers get the necessary information. It's very important for our so-called new historical regions, because I am still quite a young person, but nevertheless, surely all of this is still remembered, what happened when the regime that is currently in power in Kiev came to power, and how nationalist things were imposed. Nationalism is the first stage towards Nazism. Nationalism is the first step, because nationalism is based on not just love for representatives of one's own ethnicity, but on hatred towards others. That's the essence of nationalism. Patriotism is a completely different matter. Loving your homeland does not mean hating others. And nationalism is fueled precisely by this. Hatred towards other countries and other peoples. And our task is to educate ourselves and the world around us in love for one another. Precisely in love for one another. This is the foundation of the universe. Even if we see something happening around us that requires our judgment, we must do it in the most objective way possible, based not on any phobias, but on real facts. And when you present these facts in the school museum, when you systematize them and present them skillfully and beautifully, not only with drawings and documents, which is very important. It's important for the information to be objective, but perhaps also using some modern means of information transmission, so that it is interesting for your classmates, your schoolmates. That's when you will achieve the maximum effect. Regarding these spaces you mentioned, I completely agree with you. Here it is very important for everything to be visible in plain sight. And indeed, but where it is possible, probably not everywhere yet, including in the Donetsk People's Republic, in Luhansk, in the Zaporizhzhia region, or Kherson. But where it is possible, of course, it should be done. But not only here, but throughout the country. Throughout the country, of course, these spaces should be used to the maximum benefit, both from the perspective of patriotic education and simply in terms of conveying some useful information to the people who live in this space and spend a significant part of their lives there. School children today spend most of their time in schools, especially if you consider extracurricular activities. They spend most of the day there. Therefore, it is very important. I will definitely discuss this with the Minister of Education. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the idea.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, today many of us shared stories about our ancestors and representatives of our lineage. And in our country, there are people for whom the concepts of family and homeland share a common root for a reason. I would like to give the floor to Elena Vinogradova, a representative of the Committee of Families of the Homeland's Warriors.
Good afternoon, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Today, so many stories about our ancestors have been shared, how similar they are to the stories of our husbands and sons. The Committee of Families of the Homeland's Warriors pays great attention to patriotic education. We are a nation of victors. For so many years, they tried to instill in us that our great victory is a merit of the past. Yes, and then we even heard that the victory wasn't ours at all. Who is telling us this? A nation of losers who have lost on all fronts during this entire period. And we see what is happening there, and even because of this, we, mothers and wives, although it is sometimes difficult for us, understand the importance, the significance, and the timeliness of conducting this special military operation. There are heroes in my family too. One of them is Romanov Nikolai Romanovich, my grandfather, a participant in the Great Patriotic War, 18 awards. He received his first at 18, the Medal for Courage. My grandfather lived a long and happy life and personally wrote a guiding biography, Home, for his great-grandchildren. It includes these lines: "Dear great-grandchild, be worthy of the memory of your grandfather, Nikolai Romanov. Preserve and uphold the honor and dignity of our family." My son fulfills the wishes of his great-grandfather. He is a participant in a special military operation. Like his grandfather, he is an artilleryman, carrying out combat missions since 2022 in the Zaporozhye direction. Building on the connection between generations, a project was born in our family. It is called "I Remember Your Feet, Dear. Grandpa Has My Back." This project has already become a national campaign, and thousands of families from all corners of our country have shared their stories. I brought a sample with me to at least show Vladimir Vladimirovich here, now. The thing is, for us, the families of the warriors of the fatherland, it is very important that it develops, is broadcasted in educational institutions, television formats, because we will do everything to ensure that our future generations do not become Ivans who do not remember their kin, as is happening there now. They forgot everything, both their lineage and their heroic grandfathers. So, please, support our project.
Absolutely. Let me say a couple of words now. Yes, thank you. Leave it. So, what would I like to say? Well, what you just talked about is very important. And I also mentioned this during our meeting, but this connection, the connection between generations, it has fundamental importance. It's very important what we feel. Once again, tell me how it goes. Grandfather behind my back. How does it sound?
I remember your heroic deed, my dear. Grandfather is behind my back. And we saw, on the screen, we saw that behind that soldier stood his comrades. And we have our own grandfathers standing and continuing the fight against Nazism in the same ranks.
Exactly, absolutely. A very good idea and a wonderful project. We will definitely support it. I will look into how to do it, and by what means, where, what, how. But definitely, because, well, this liveliness, it has fundamental importance. And this, and working in this format, usually brings the maximum result. Now, regarding, you mentioned that they are trying to distort the history of a defeated nation. If I may, I would like to say a few words on this matter. So, the young lady, Veronica, from, Victoria, yes, Victoria from Spain. Here we were talking about France. We can talk about other countries. We constantly hear about Germany. You know, in the period before the Great Patriotic War, before World War II, we had very good relations with Germany. And it all had an ideological nature. But the Communist Party of Germany was one of the most powerful political forces in Germany after World War I and during the Weimar Republic and in general. And they had very strong ties with the Soviet Union. But they were the first victims of Nazism. And then for many years throughout the Great Patriotic War, we had a stable reliance on these forces, which were, of course, being destroyed, and largely were destroyed. The well-known group that our intelligence relied on, the Red Orchestra, had its representatives working in all the bodies of Nazi Germany, even in the Gestapo. These are the people who, as one historian wrote, served their ideological homeland, the Soviet Union, thus selflessly. And when the war began, well, of course, everything was so intense, and everything was on the brink of the survival of the country and the nation, or the nations that made up the Soviet Union at the time, that naturally other harsh slogans appeared, including on posters, "Kill the German." Right there on the posters, because everything became so harsh that it required such severity in propaganda. Today, of course, when we see German-made tanks with crosses in Ukraine, certain associations naturally arise. Unfortunately, there's no escaping that. But I would, of course, what you said is true. These defeated nations are trying to impose something on us and distort it. I'll explain why now. I think it's clear to everyone anyway, nevertheless. And we are undoubtedly a nation of victors, a nation in the broad sense of the word. When I say nation, I mean all the peoples, all the ethnic groups of the former Soviet Union and Russia, of course. But I would also speak of a generation of victors and an international of victors. And today we need this international. We need to work with those people who think like us, both in Europe and in North America. There are many of them, and we need to unite our efforts. But of course, the core, the foundation, or at the heart of victory, lies, of course, in the feet of our people first and foremost. And we, being Russians, Tatars, Jews, I don't know, Mordvins, well, anyone, Chechens, Dagestanis, we must first and foremost, of course, talk about this. That's it. And why is that? Persistently someone from another international, from the Brown International, supports neo-Nazism and tries, in this case in Ukraine, tries to dissolve the memory of the feats of our people, the feats of our ancestors, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers. Why? Because erasing historical memory dissolves us ourselves. From this, we lose our identity, and therefore our internal cohesion and strength, the unity of our people. A people without a past has no future. And this attempt to dissolve us all into some amorphous state, it is not accidental. It is a targeted effort against, in this case, our country, against Russia and against the peoples of the Russian Federation. And your work and your project are undoubtedly aimed at countering these attacks and, on the contrary, strengthening our unity, reinforcing our self-awareness, our identity, and therefore our internal sovereignty. I fully support your project. Thank you very much.
The majority of historical truth is preserved in archives. I would like to hand over the floor to Artem Beloglazov, a professional historian who skillfully works with archival documents.
Hello, Vladimir Vladimirovich. My name is Artem Beloglazov. I am a historian, engaged in historical archival expertise, and have long been involved in the project No Statute of Limitations. I'm concerned about a very important issue, the problem of recognizing the genocide of the Soviet people at the international level. In our country, 34 court trials have taken place, which recognize the crimes of the Nazis on the occupied territory of the USSR as genocide of the Soviet people. A huge number of documents have been declassified, which confirm the monstrous nature of the war that Nazi Germany waged against us. However, very often at the international level, one can hear that the systematic extermination of our compatriots is not considered genocide. For example, the blockade of Leningrad, a planned act of genocide by the Germans, during which more than 1 million Soviet citizens died, predominantly from starvation, is translated into foreign languages as a city siege, which fundamentally distorts the essence of this crime. My colleagues from the National Center for Historical Memory and I have prepared an exhibition titled The Blockade of Leningrad, Genocide of the Soviet People During the Great Patriotic War, where we called things by their proper names. It was exhibited in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, at the Piskaryovskoye Cemetery, as well as internationally, particularly at the United Nations Security Council, and it will be opened in Geneva, to show what our compatriots actually went through. Vladimir Vladimirovich, could you please tell us how you respond to attempts by other countries to rewrite the history of the Great Patriotic War, and how to counteract the falsification of history among the younger generation, as well as what prospects you see for the recognition of the genocide of the Soviet people at the international level?
Firstly, we rely on the decisions and conclusions of the Nuremberg trials. There, everything is essentially called by its proper name. There are attempts to forget, suppress, and obscure this. Well, at the level of our official government bodies, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, this work is carried out constantly. But, this will undoubtedly only succeed if people like you, those who have gathered here today, and your like-minded individuals across the country, continuously raise these issues. And this is not a futile effort. It's not about searching for enemies in the past. This is a way to convey to ourselves and to our people and to the whole world the realities of the events that took place back then. Because these realities largely explain our behavior today. This is very important. This has practical significance. I can tell you for sure, because we hear, and I sometimes hear from my foreign colleagues, even those who, to put it mildly, do not sympathize with what we are doing to protect our interests. They say, well, yes, of course, the Soviet Union and the Soviet people suffered so much. Well, of course, you have the right to think about protecting your interests and ensuring your security today and for the long historical perspective. This has practical significance. Therefore, we will engage in this both through the state and through public organizations, supporting such projects as have just been mentioned, and everything we are discussing here with you. Together, only together will we achieve the desired result. We will work.
Thank you.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, we see that now. Just like during the Great Patriotic War, the whole country is helping the front. I believe that the desire to help is a trait that lies not just in the cultural code, but in the genetic code of our people. I want to give the floor to Angelina Uzhikovskaya, a volunteer and student at Kursk State University.
Hello, Vladimir Vladimirovich. First of all, I want to congratulate all of us on the long-awaited liberation of the Kursk region from the occupation by Ukrainian military formations. Thank you very much for the comprehensive state support for temporary migrants. From the first day of the invasion, I, along with the team of the Young Guard of United Russia, have been helping the affected residents. We worked in temporary accommodation centers, humanitarian centers, and warehouses. Volunteers from all over the country came to the Kursk region to help. Some of them were engaged in extremely important and dangerous work. They helped evacuate civilians from the occupied territories. Unfortunately, not all of them returned. Vladimir Vladimirovich, volunteer activities in the Kursk region have become a symbol of the people's unity. So I ask you to consider the creation of a memorial in my home region, dedicated to the volunteers of the special military operation. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you and everyone who worked with you during this difficult time and continues to work as it is not over yet. Yes, the enemy was driven out of the Kursk region, but they are still hiding in some places, in some basements. We hear with what they are saying, asking for evacuation. Well, I won't go into details now. Evacuation is impossible because there are scattered groups of 2 or 3 people, I repeat, hiding somewhere in the woods, in some burrows, in complete isolation. By the way, they are being offered to surrender. Some have been captured and sent back to where their comrades are with an offer to lay down their arms. It's not an isolated case, just a few days ago. But as for the volunteers, you know, it's like how search teams work and volunteers. Well, this volunteer movement is, of course, developed worldwide. But here, it has taken on a special character. We have special people here, young people who are just starting their lives. They are so imbued with a sense of duty, responsibility, and awareness of the importance of what they are doing, that they don't spare themselves. And I would like to address you, first of all, and I hope your comrades will hear me, to exercise maximum caution. Unfortunately, I'm aware of this. There are also losses among the volunteers. We will do everything to support you. And you suggested creating a memorial. We will do that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, I know you have a very tight schedule. Is there time to listen to one more participant? Is there? The last one?
Go ahead. They are already tugging at your sleeve. Well, let's do it.
And today we have with us a young poet, Nikita Gogolev.
Good day, esteemed Vladimir Vladimirovich. I am Nikita Gogolev. I am 13 years old, from the Stavropol region, city of Pyatigorsk. Something unites all people. For example, I also practice judo and was born in October, like you. Now all of us, just like our ancestors once did, have united for the common defense of the motherland, each in their own place. I write poetry and believe that creativity should help us remember what is important. Allow me to read an excerpt from my poem, written for the 80th anniversary of the great victory. I hear the victory fanfares, as my great-grandfather once did. Young guys march with the orchestra across Red Square. They march as they did back in 45, the soldiers of our victory. And their great-grandfathers are proud of them, and no enemy is frightening. In the ranks are young heroes, Russia behind them, and there is no doubt victory will be ours. And the enemy will be defeated again, and the peaceful sky above us will be colored with fireworks as a symbol of the great victory. Vladimir Vladimirovich, meeting with you has been a long-held dream of mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really hope that you will continue. Please have a seat.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, I was simply born and raised in the Caucasus, and it is customary for us that when elders speak, the younger ones stand.
All right. The Caucasus has its own traditions. We hold them in great respect because they significantly shape the character of the people who live in this wonderful part of our country. All right. I just want to wish you success in your creative endeavors. I hope that you will continue on this path. What we all heard is impressive, without any doubt. How old are you?
13.
13 years old, such a young person, yet you express such patriotic things, and how beautifully you present them. I would really like for this to be spread more widely, more widely, more widely. We definitely, I will personally think about how to make sure that as many people as possible, not only your peers, but also citizens of our country, learn about your work. Thank you for thinking about this. And what do your parents do?
Well, my mom is an economist, and she also used to write poetry. And at the beginning of my journey, she helped me in my creativity.
See how nicely he said, at the beginning of my journey. So he is no longer at the beginning. He already feels that he is practically an established poet and writer. I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. And give my regards to your mom.
Thank you so much. I will definitely pass it on.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for today's meeting. I wish you success. And as you may have noticed, I noted many things that we talked about today. The topic we discussed is clear to us, but I would like to note that this topic, of course, is extremely important in itself, but it gives us an opportunity to talk in general about what we are doing, how we live, what needs to be done additionally to live even better, and which development vectors are particularly important. And by noting all this for myself, I will accordingly organize my own work, as well as work with my colleagues, with the government, with the presidential administration, and with the heads of the subjects of the Russian Federation, including those from the Caucasus. Thank you very much. Allow me to wish you good luck and congratulate you on the upcoming holiday. Happy Victory Day. Thank you.